All right, guys, now comes the really, really fun part. We get to use everything that you've learned in the last lesson about the incredible capabilities of the Procreate app, and we get to apply them to a beautiful lettering piece of your own. So I'm going to show you kind of how to use all of these different things that you've learned and apply them to hand lettering. I definitely recommend that as you move through this lesson, you follow along in your own app, create your own lettering piece, pause the video if you need to just take it slowly, but I think you really learn best when you're actually applying what you're seeing on screen. So I definitely encourage you to work alongside me and create your own lettering piece in this lesson. The first thing I want you to do is from your gallery screen, create a new canvas. So we're gonna do that with the plus sign. I'm just gonna create a screen size canvas from my default here. There are a couple of different ways that you can start here, but if you're a beginner, one thing that I recommend is using the awesome feature here under your actions panel to insert a flat image. And I've actually saved to my camera roll just some graph paper. And I think it's really helpful to use as a guide throughout your piece. So using what we know about the transform tool here, I can click my full screen, which is gonna kind of blow that up. I can further zoom in thanks to my magnetic mode there, and then when I'm ready I can just unclick the transform, and there I have some nice graph paper to kind of guide me throughout my piece. And using my layers palette over here, I can hide it or show it depending on how far along I am in my piece. So that's a good place to start if you're a beginner. I also recommend trying to either pull in a pencil sketch that you've already done, or you can draw your own pencil sketch in Procreate. So I'm going to create a new layer here. I'm going to go to my paint mode brushes, and I've created a modified version of this 6B pencil. I've just named it Pencil Big, and the only thing I've done to it is over here in general, I've just placed my size limits up a little bit higher so that the max size of the pencil goes a little bit larger than the 6B pencil. So remember, over here in your stroke setting, you can adjust your streamline to whatever you want it to be. And that's going to give you a nice little pencil to draw your sketch with. So for my lettering piece that I'm going to show throughout this video, I've just decided 2 words, hello gorgeous. And I want my gorgeous to be sort of larger and in a script typeface down here. And then I want my hello to be in a different lettering style up top, kind of separated. So that's the idea that I have in my head. So we'll see how that turns out. Now, even though I have my graph paper here, it's a little bit hard for me to tell what lines I'm going to stick to for my larger word gorgeous down here. So using that really cool feature quick line, I recommend picking a point, sort of the top line that I want my word to be, and drawing just a quick line. Remember, you just hold down the tip of your stylus and don't let it up, and that's going to create a straight line. And then also, if you add your second hand, that's going to snap it in 15-degree increments, so you know you're getting an absolutely straight line that way. Now, I could just draw a second line, or I can go up here to my select tool. I can just lasso that line there, and then I can select this copy to a new layer, and that's going to basically duplicate the selection. So you can see now I can drag this line, the same exact line, as far down as I want. So let's say maybe I want it to be about, let's say about there. So that's kind of where I want my gorgeous to live. And again, this is going to be your pencil sketch. You're not going to use this as your final. So there's no need for me to create a new layer with my actual lettering. I'm just going to kind of use my guides, scratch it up as much as I need to as I'm forming my sketch layer here. So I want this, as I said, this gorgeous word to be in a script typeface. So now I'm going to actually use my brush and get in there and just sort of sketch out how I want those letters to live in my script lettering. So I'm going to do that real fast. Now I almost ran out of room here, so I'm going to go up here to my transform tool. Keeping in mind that because I duplicated that line, it added it to a new layer, so that's why you don't see my original line moving with me, but that's fine. Again, these are just kind of my pencil sketches, so I'm kind of moving that over so it's a little bit more central. And now that I have my basic word down here, I also think this is a great opportunity to look for some flourishing opportunities or places where you want to connect your letters or things like that. So I didn't really know how to finish off this G here, but now that I see that nothing's really coming down on the right-hand side of the word, I want to balance it out a bit. So all I'm going to do is go right back over, and I think I'm going to create sort of a nice little flourish like that, just to create some balance. That's kind of a fun way of underscoring the right-hand side of the word there. And then now, same with my beginning G here. I can kind of say that I want this to come up a little bit. And that's all I'm doing at this point with my lettering piece is I'm just using my pencil layer how you would do it on a regular piece of paper, just kind of now that you see it down, changing any of the proportions or anything that you might want to change about your lettering. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add my hello at the top there. So I think I want it to be kind of central but smaller. So let's just say, and maybe I want that to be more of a, maybe I want that to be more of, and maybe I actually want this to be sort of a serif font. Oh no, that's kind of fun. All right, so now I'm gonna just use my transform tool and actually let me merge these two pencil layers together. Again, I can just pinch them together to merge. And now my other guide behind will not be on its own little layer there. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good for my pencil sketch. So now I can go in here to my layers, and remember, these can easily be hidden. So if I don't need that graph paper anymore, I can go ahead and hide it. I'm going to create a new layer. So now I'm going to actually go back in and use one of my other fun brushes to create my lettering. So I'm also going to choose a color. So I want this gorgeous to be in this sort of, I want it to be in this pink here. And I'm going to go back to my absolute favorite brush in my imported brush set here, this rich watercolor. So now I'm on a brand new layer, and I'm going to just use my pencil sketch as a guide. So I'm going to make sure that my brush size isn't too big. I think that's pretty good. And I can zoom into any area that I want. And then I can just use my pencil sketch as a guide. That's actually a little bit thicker than I want because I want to be able to go back over it. So I'm just going to move my brush size down a hair. And start this out by going back over my pencil sketch. And then if I want to get this flourish right, I can just rotate my canvas. And again, I'm going to straighten that out when I go back over my letters, but I'm just kind of tracing right now. And if you screw up, use your 2-finger tap as your undo. So that looks pretty good. And again, I can go back over here to my layers and hide my underlayer, my sketch layer, just to see really clearly how that turned out. I'm going to keep it on for now because now I want to go back over on this same layer and I want to thicken up the downstrokes. Now that I see it, I think the sketch layer is distracting me a little bit, so I'm going to hide that. And just continue to kind of draw my letters as you would in a normal lettering piece if it wasn't digital. I just love the ability to make all the changes that you need to make without having to start over an entirely new sketch. It's really fun. All right, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. All right, so one thing that I wanted to point out here is you can really tell that I was starting to run out of space because you can see my letters on this side of the word are a little bit more squished, which is fine. You can actually fix that. So I'm going to go up here to my transform tool, and with my magnetic mode on, I'm going to kind of scale the whole thing down just a little bit, move it back center, and now I'm going to have the ability to go in one by one and kind of space out the second half of my words. Even this G especially is getting real tight. So with my selection tool and my freehand mode, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm actually going to go in super close here. I'm going to use it kind of with the polygon, so cut it off right there and go right in between these guys and connect it back here. So now I'm going to select just that half of my word, click my transform tool there, and you can see I can kind of stretch that out quite a bit. And now the proportions of my letters feel a little bit less smushed compared to the front of my word. I'm actually going to go in and erase the top of my G here and do sort of the same thing that I did before. Space it out just a tad. Just really give it some room to breathe. And then I can go back in and fill in my G in the space that makes a little bit more sense. So I actually now feel like this is a little squished. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. There we go. I like those proportions just a lot better. Now I can go in and fill in my G. I think my R should come up a little bit there. I like that a lot better. It matches that side. I like that a lot better than the original proportions, and so now all I have to do is just kind of match up this stroke to my new G. All right, and now I can reposition that gorgeous word. Let's see how my sketch is doing underneath. So not bad. I mean, it's the same general area. So now let's start my second part of my lettering. And again, I just like to keep each different part of my phrase on a different layer. So I'm going to add a new layer to go back in and add my hello, using my guide as a reference. And then now I'm going to hide my pencil marks, go back in and add my serifs, thicken up these horizontal parts of my letters. All right, and now I can just reposition that too if I want it to be closer down here, if I want it to be overlapping, or remember you can reorder your layers, so I could drag it down underneath my gorgeous, so you know, I could make it sit a little bit behind if I wanted to, but I think I'm going to scale it down just a tad and keep it right in the center there. So this by itself would be, I think, a really great lettering piece. But I want to use a couple more of the skills that we've talked about in the last lesson in Procreate just to show you how you can take it from this place to an entirely different place. So let's play around with alpha lock just to start off. Remember that in order to engage alpha lock, I'm going to do it for this word gorgeous up here. Take your two fingers and slide it from the left to the right, and you'll see that checkered pattern pop up in the background. And that means that everything that was transparent on that layer is now locked in. So we can paint now on this layer, and we're only going to paint within the word gorgeous that we had there. So I'm actually going to use my eyedropper here to pick up this pink and then go for a little bit of a darker pink. And a fun brush to play with over here is the spray paint flicks brush. So I'm actually going to try to create sort of a spray painted ombre effect. So I'm going to kind of just do my brush down near the bottom of these letters, and I'm going to just keep going a little bit lighter and changing up the scale of my flicks so you can, let's see if you can see a little bit better there. That alpha lock comes in handy because you can see I'm not getting any of the flicks on the surrounding area. Now let's go even darker here. Move this down so that near the bottom of my letters you can see. So the effect is sort of like, you know, almost like a little glittery speckled effect on the bottom, and it kind of gradually gets lighter. So that's really fun. That's using the alpha lock. Also, now that I have my two lettering kind of pieces engaged, I'm just gonna merge those two layers together so I have my full lettering layer. And I want to show you how we can actually use image adjustment. So right now I have this blue and pink combination, but if I go over to my adjustments and I pull up my hue, saturation, and brightness, and I toggle my hue slider here, you can see all of these different color combinations are going to pop up, like this peach and green, or this like olive and purple, which I never would have thought of, but looks really cool. This blue and red, green and purple, kind of this yellow and teal. I mean, all of these are super fun to play with. Let's say I'm going to go with maybe this green and purple. And now what's even more fun is I can pull up my curves palette and really go nuts and start to try and create some interesting combinations like I showed you just using these settings here. Let's try to get something like, ooh, crazy. That inverse is super neat. So I mean, it's dark, but like, I like how that inverted the speckles on the bottom there. That's super cool. I don't want to get rid of that. I want it to be like maybe, ooh. That's super neat. But where'd my hello go? Let's bring that back. Whoa, that's really fun. Okay, I really like this. It's sort of like a light pink, and then you could really see that speckled ombre pop on the bottom, but the hello's a little bit hard to see, so let's create a background layer. I'm gonna go over here to my layers palette, click new underneath my lettering layer, and now I'm going to create a background layer using a darker color than the top, just so that the top really pops there. And remember the color drop effect. So if I have my new layer selected, I can just drag my color from my selector here into my background layer, and ba-bam, there you go. Now it definitely pops off of that background color. Maybe I want to make it even darker. Just kind of play around with some different stuff here, or like super, even like way different, like maybe green. Whoa. I like that, but now that doesn't pop too much, so I'm going to go back to my lettering layer. Maybe play around with the hue slider again. Ooh. Green, blue. I really like the blue. I kind of want that to be lighter and brighter though. I mean, I could do this all day. The orange, that's crazy. All right, let's stick with the blue. And there you have it, guys. There is my basic lettering layer that I have created using a ton of the tools that we have gone over in the Procreate lesson. And now in the next video, I'm going to share with you some simple ways to add details, highlights, and shadows to this already very fun lettering piece.